Good evening, everyone, and welcome along to the F1 show. I think that caught Charlie by surprise a bit there, actually.
I thought
but
my
yeah,
I thought my laptop was gonna die. I literally thought I lost connection for a second.
for a second, while you're still with us, Charlie. Going into the final race of the season in Abu Dhabi. Now, I think at Silverstone on the F1 show, after the Silverstone race, Charlie and I sat here and said, imagine if it was a dead tie on points going into the final round. I don't think anyone, any of us, anyone, any F1 fan quite expected this scenario, Charlie.
They didn't. I think we're going to talk about. We'll probably come on to Jeddah in a minute, but yeah, Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton tied on points. I'm so excited! It's a 2016 all over again. Hamilton and Rosberg fighting for the championship, but this time round it is Verstappen and Hamilton. Two different drivers, two different teams. It's going to be the dead tie going into Abu Dhabi this weekend.
Now, Red Bull have the quicker car, you could argue. Lewis Hamilton's got the momentum. Max Verstappen is determined to destroy the Mercedes party. How do you see this one playing out, Charlie? I think it's going to be a weekend through the full of twists and towels.
I'd say it's going to be a weekend of drama. I thought last week's race was like watching a circus act, if you know what I mean, with lots of mayhem in Jeddah. I think this weekend is going to be very competitive for sure. Both drivers are not going to want to give an inch this weekend.
Well, let's quickly talk about Jeddah. There's been a lot of criticism this week in the media and on social media towards Max Verstappen. That move on Sunday, Charlie, that you could argue took half of Lewis Hamilton's front wing off. Was that deemed dangerous on your part? For me, if you're trying to let someone pass, I don't think you sit in the middle of the track, and that move to the left, I would deem that's dangerous driving.
Yeah, but it wasn't just that, Jack. He had a couple of incidents, didn't he, during the race? He didn't have just that one. I think where Hamilton lost a bit of his front wing. I think there was one on the first lap after the first restart where he tried to go round the outside of Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas, but essentially missed the corner.
Well, yeah, that was Esteban Ocon on that occasion, actually.
Esteban Ocon.
Yeah, there was multiple ones, and then obviously that 36 as well. He pushed Lewis Hamilton off the track, which was what he got the 5-second time penalty for. Now, Verstappen's argument in this one, Charlie, was he didn't get a penalty in Brazil for doing this, which maybe he should have done. And Lewis, you could argue, did also force him off the track when he eventually got the lead. So, should Lewis have got the penalty as well, in the end, it wouldn't have made much effect to the race result had Lewis had got the penalty, because Max Verstappen then received a 10-second time penalty for dangerous driving, which again didn't affect the result. And you could argue, should the stewards have given him a penalty, that would have affected the result of the race.
It was a busy weekend, Jack, last weekend for Michael Massey, who certainly was full of reporting after so many incidents. Obviously, there was about 3 of them, which ended up being with Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen both
in the
having a few incidents.
Yeah. It was a crazy race, to say the least, and the Jeddah Corniche circuit really did serve every F1 fan up a treat. There's still going to be the questions of safety on it, though, and George Russell has questioned the safety of the circuit. There was numerous high-speed crashes in all categories across the weekend. Does the circuit need some modifications for 2022?
I think it does, Jack. I was quite vocal about it last week on my social media pages. I mentioned, obviously, Mick Schumacher had a big accident at the weekend. Charles Leclerc went off last week. I think in FP2 or FP3 went off as well. There was some big crashes. I tell you what, though, I was surprised we didn't see many. We saw a lap of Charles Leclerc and Sergio Perez coming together. That was a racing incident, in my opinion. But the thing was, turn 22 certainly was one of the most dangerous corners on the track because of how fast it was. We got it wrong there. I'm afraid there's hardly any runoff.
Talking about big crashes, we've had a lot of questions in the week. Do we have any updates on Teo Pourchaire and Enzo Fittipaldi. What we can tell you is Teo Porcher will be back in Abu Dhabi for F2 this weekend. However, Enzo Fittipaldi has suffered a broken heel and he will miss out this weekend's race. The injuries that were thought to be quite severe for Enzo are looking more like just a broken heel now. That's great news, Charlie, because that was a horrible accident in the F2 feature race on Sunday.
I watched the crowd. I saw the footage of it. Oh, God. I don't know. An ART stalled and then someone went into the back of him. I'm afraid it's happened in F1 once. Fernando Alonso went over the top of someone, I think, in Monza many years ago. But yeah, that's a horrible accident.
That one, actually, occasion. That was Nico Hulkenberg completely missing his braking. But yeah, it is something that can occur quite often. But thing is, it's one of these things, Charlie, in terms of safety, there's not really much you can do to avoid these unfortunate incidents when they happen.
No, it's just that's what racing is. You're going to be, if you've got a narrow track, you just got to go for a gap that's there. And unfortunately, with Jeddah, it's a circuit. It was very narrow. And as I said before the weekend, it was inevitable there was going to be collisions.
And the bank corner as well, which I think served some good overtaking, didn't it, throughout the race? We saw Yuki Tsunoda make a bold move there. So you weigh up the pros and cons of this track. The pros is it provided good racing. The negatives were it was slightly dangerous. But Lewis Hamilton said, Charlie, he likes the fact that there's a bit of danger to the circuit as well.
Yeah, I think we need we need different tracks. I mean, it's a very fast lap, so we need a fast street circuit. I just think if Formula One were to have circuits where you have hardly any runoff and a barrier millimeters away from a fast corner, that for me is probably pushing it slightly. But
as much as you want Formula One to be safe, you want that slight bit of danger there as well.
Yeah, I mean, Eau Rouge is probably the best example of it because if you have a look, it's such a fast corner and basically there's a small runoff, a barrier right next to you if you get it wrong. I mean, look at Lando Norris this year in qualifying for that race in wet conditions, getting it all wrong up there. There needs to be that element of danger, but also safety as well.
Now, going on to this weekend, we got a tie in the championship. Do you know what happened last time there was a tie in the championship going to the finale?
I've got to work that one out. I'm not sure whether the other one driver won.
No, one driver crashed out quite badly, unfortunately. Not to be too depressing, that driver didn't survive that crash, unfortunately. So this is a message to all our competitors. Stay safe out there this weekend. Have a good one and make it enjoyable for the fans to watch, Charlie, because it's being shown on free-to-air in most places across the world. If you're in UK, you can watch it Channel 4 at Sky Sports. Anywhere else in the world, to our international viewers, you can watch it most of the time on your local, on your national TV station, and it will also be streamed on F1 TV as well.
I can't wait. I will certainly, if it's on that, I'll be watching the race this weekend, without a doubt. I want to see drivers race this weekend. I want to see, in general, with qualifying being on as well, and practice hopefully on tomorrow. I might be popping on occasionally on the telly, putting the channels on, just having a little assessment of some of the F1 cars tomorrow and the data that will be gathered over the weekend.
So I think in terms of practice, Charlie, that isn't being shown on free-to-air. However, qualifying will be shown on free-to-air and the race. What is your assessment, Charlie, that we could get a similar incident to Senna Prost 89?
It's potential. I mean, this weekend, both Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton are going to be, well, I don't know whether them two are going to even, if they race against each other, what's the outcome going to be? Are they going to crash? Are they going to be fair? I don't know.
My honest opinion, Charlie, is it will turn ugly at some point this weekend. But it very clearly states in the race director's notes that the stewards, if there is an incident between Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton, where they are both taken out of the race, will deduct championship points from the driver and the team of the person who is predominantly at fault for the incident. Wow. Charlie, this is quite a big move from the stewards. It is in their possession to deduct points, but they don't want to do it normally. But this weekend, Charlie, they clearly won. The battle decided on track, fairly, and not someone ramming another driver off the road.
It's interesting. I've never heard that they're going to deduct points for causing a collision. I've never heard that in my lifetime in F1. I don't know if any driver who's the one that been in a final race has ever been deducted points for causing a collision.
It has happened before. People have been drivers have been deducted points, but I've never known it to happen in a season finale. Obviously, in '89, Senna got a penalty, didn't he, for cutting the chicane.
And 1997, Michael Schumacher got disqualified for essentially trying to take Jacques Villeneuve out in the European Grand Prix that year as well.
Yep. There's always the potential that this season, especially, that the top two are going to come together. If they start alongside each other, Charlie, it could get pretty feisty into the first corner.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very narrow first corner, Abu Dhabi. We'll go over the track in a minute, but yeah, I think it's going to get very feisty. I wouldn't be surprised Tyson Fury clearly thinks Max Verstappen is going to be the one to beat this weekend, but it's going to be interesting. Will one be like Tyson Fury and the other be like Anthony Joshua? We just got to wait and see.
Well, it's interesting watching what the celebrities are saying, Charlie. And Tyson Fury, as you said, backs Max Verstappen. Will Smith backs Lewis Hamilton. He's made that clear. The Rock as well, I believe, is backing Lewis Hamilton this weekend. And then, of course, the Dutch stars, of course, they'll be going to be backing Supermax, as they called him in the Netherlands. And if Max does win the World Championship, I'm sure Supermax will be being played all night long.
Yeah, I mean, Max Verstappen will be. I don't know whether he'll be the young. I don't think he's going to be the youngest world champion. I mean, I haven't checked whether he would be the youngest.
If he was to win the title this weekend, he would be the youngest world champion in Formula One history, beating Sebastian Vettel. But obviously, if Lewis was to become champion, he'd hold the all-time record for the most championships in the history of the sport.
You got two records that can be broken. You got the most in the history of F1 or the youngest ever world champion. So that's going to be very interesting.
So whatever happens, history awaits. If you want to get involved with us on social media, tag your post with hashtag Abu Dhabi GP, hashtag history awaits, and we will try and pick them up and get through as many of them as we can on Sunday. Charlie, I would normally say don't expect safety cars at Abu Dhabi, but if this one's going to turn feisty, expect the safety car at some point.
Yeah, and also as well, the track layout has been altered as well ahead of this weekend's meeting as well.
It's a lot faster than it originally used to be, with a wider hairpin at what is turn 3 now. What used to be turn 6 is now turn 3. Do you like the new adaptations, Charlie? What used to be turn 5, sorry. Do you like the new adaptations to the circuit, bank corner?
I love it. I hope they get it on the F1 game soon, because I really would love to have a go at driving this track. It looks quite cool, actually.
Well, you'll get a go, Charlie, because it's remaining on the F1 calendar for a further 10 years until at least 2030. Cash is king?
Yeah, I think for Abu Dhabi, they get a lot of people in from Saudi Arabia or from the UAE to watch this race. It's the biggest track for them. It's one of the biggest tracks in Asia, technically, really.
I would say Sakir is bigger. It's a better circuit as well, probably. There has been talks, should they switch Abu Dhabi and Bahrain around, so we have Bahrain at the end of the year. What's your opinion, Charlie, on having Bahrain as the last race? Because I actually like Bahrain as a circuit.
Yeah, I think Bahrain's an interesting one. I mean, I suppose the teams go there first just because of financial reasons, but I think Abu Dhabi. I'd love to see Abu Dhabi trialled as the first race of the season. I think they just do it Abu Dhabi at the end because they just know how successful it's been as like a title decider.
I'm not saying do Abu Dhabi first, but have Sakhir last.
They could do that.
Because obviously, traditionally, we started off with Australia, but now we seem to be starting off in Bahrain.
Yeah, I think as well, Bahrain have got the pre-season testing as well. That helps with logistics.
Well, there's also been talks that we could add a pre-season test at Portimao, which isn't on the calendar for next year. It is our reserve race, which, as we know with COVID, is quite likely to get used.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be surprised about China coming on the next year's calendar after all the issues they've had out there. And also, as well, we've got the Winter Olympics going there next year. So that could play some part into that.
Well, you talk about a Winter Olympics. At this rate, no one's going to be turning up to those Winter Olympics. And is F1 says it is to do with COVID, but is it to do with human rights?
Potentially. I'm not going to go much into this issue, but I know that Lewis Hamilton's been speaking about this on like the media rounds. And
yeah,
I mean, I've seen some of the footage in some of these countries, and I think Formula One are addressing this issue very well, actually.
They are. And one thing, Charlie, that is for certain, there'll be no Christmas parties at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Unlike maybe at number 10 last year, there was maybe just a few Christmas parties. And Anton Deck, it's fair to say, have been mocking the Prime Minister the past few nights. Evening Prime Minister, Charlie, has been Deck's favourite phrase of the series, I think.
Evening Prime Minister tonight. Are you watching the F1 on Sunday? Potentially.
You actually talk about that, Charlie. Boris Johnson is a Lewis Hamilton fan.
Oh yes, interesting. I'm sure Boris. I'm not going to go into too much political news tonight, but Evening Prime Minister, are you going to be watching the F1 this weekend and cheering Lewis Hamilton on from wherever you are? Yeah,
I'm sure he will be, Charlie, when his country is potentially about to make history in one of the world's most favourite sports.
Yeah, all I can say is I think at the moment, I mean, will certainly Lewis Hamilton have questions on the flat? We don't know, but I'm sure on the party thing. But I'm sure Lewis Hamilton will have a Christmas party somewhere in Abu Dhabi potentially.
Potentially, and they've been doing their traditional Secret Santa today. And Fernando Alonso's gift to Daniel Ricciardo was quite a good one. He got him a fake tattoo, Charlie, that goes on his arm of Fernando Alonso's face. I think that did make Daniel Ricciardo laugh.
Yeah, I think Cyril Beatable got his one the other day as well, and he certainly seemed very pleased.
He did. Zach Brown's got Monza on his arm, the Autodrome Esilio de Monza layout on his arm. They've been hosting the World Rally Championship at Monza recently. Quite a good event, actually. Monza always serves up a classic in F1. It's a Silverstone in Italy, isn't it? Tifosi. The Tifosi will be out in force this weekend, though, because, of course, if the F1 drivers want to get away from the adrenaline on the track, they've got the adrenaline in the theme park, which is just next door in Ferrari World. And they've actually got the world's fastest roller coaster there, Charlie.
Yeah, it's Intamin built, it's Formula Rossa, and apparently, if you're Kimi Raikkonen and Felipe Massa, you have been on that attraction before.
Was it Fernando? Wasn't it
Fernando Alonso? Sorry,
Fernando Alonso, yeah.
Alonso went on it once and with Massa, and then do you know what? It makes me think that they've got a theme park right next to a Formula One circuit. I bet once the race weekend finishes, I bet some of the drivers will be all hopping up to Ferrari World to have a little break.
Did you know, Charlie, there's a golf course right next to Hangar Straight at Silverstone?
Really? I bet Lando Norris likes that.
So you can play some golf and you can watch the British Grand Prix at the same time.
That's a dream. A dream for anyone to be playing golf next to F1 cars doing nearly 190 miles per hour.
Would be good, wouldn't it? Although it's going to be a weekend of celebration for whoever wins the World Championship. In a few other teams, it'll be a weekend of emotion. Grazie tutti, Antonio Giovinazzi, and we will now leave you alone, Kimi Raikkonen. will be on the Alfa Romeo cars this weekend, as they will have a whole new lineup for their team next year. Kimi, especially, Charlie, is a legend of Formula One, and although he says he's looking forward to leaving, I think in around the paddock, he will be dearly missed next year.
Yeah, I do you know what? He's been so successful. I've appreciated his career. Started with Minardi, went to McLaren, narrowly missed out on the 2003 championship, actually, believe it or not. And then he's won. He's a 2007 world champion with Ferrari. He's had a very successful career. And I know he's signed with Alfa recently, but I wish Kimi a very successful retirement. He's been in the sport for ages, and maybe, and I'm going to say this now, maybe a future I'm a Celebrity contestant. I hope Ant and Dec sign him up one day.
I mean, it would be funny to see Kimi in the jungle at least. David Legend's been in there this year, hasn't he? We can have sports stars in the jungle. It's happened before. I don't think we've ever had an F1 driver in the jungle before. But it would be good to see. And no, going back to this title fight, Charlie, we've obviously got George Russell, who once again will be having a very emotional weekend. His last race for a Williams team that has, got him into Formula One and is going to get him to where he is going to be next year. And obviously, the late great Sir Frank Williams and the Williams family was a massive part of that. And I think George will be racing for Williams this weekend.
Yeah, it's his last race for the team. I think he's done very well at that team because they've been struggling a lot lately. But I think this year they've been a lot more positive. They've had some points finishes. They've team has clearly showing progress. In Spa,
Charlie.
And the podium, don't forget that. That was the highlight for them over the past couple of seasons they've had. So I mean, I'm so glad for them.
If you count it as a podium in the Belgian Grand Prix. But I've seen a lot of memes and stuff on Twitter saying that if Max hadn't crashed out of Baku and Silverstone, he'd be miles in front. But what they haven't taken out or taken into consideration is, if Max didn't crash Lewis out at Monza for a start, and if Max didn't run Lewis wide at Imola, and on multiple other occasions, I think we'd still be dead level on points. So even though you can point and pick the blame on each occasion to a different driver, whether it's Lewis or Max, I think they all weigh up in the end.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. Max Verstappen he's one of the young talents out there. He's been successful for what he is. I'm not going to question his driving style. I mean, I'll leave that to the journalists to do that, and Lewis Hamilton as well. But both drivers are there to race.
We saw the anger, let's say, get the better of Max last weekend. Will the anger get the better of him this weekend as well?
It's going to be interesting. I think if Max doesn't get angry, I think he can really put up a fight with Lewis Hamilton this weekend.
And obviously, his whole anger, really, in the race came from that crash in qualifying, which again came from anger because he went deep into the corner. And that is what defines a great against a good driver, Charlie, because the great drivers would know you're not making that corner and you need to back out of it. But Max, I don't know whether it was in aggression or whether he thought he made the corner. It looked like it was in aggression. Decided to plant the throttle. And when you do that on the street circuit, there's only one place you're going to, and that's the crash barrier.
Yeah, because he was so close. The corner is just basically because of how that last corner was at 27, you knew Verstappen was going to hit the barrier. It was a simple mistake. You could have got away with it at other circuits, but with this track at Jeddah, it's so narrow that you just basically, if you make a mistake, as I said earlier, you can bin it. And Verstappen did end up with a big crash.
I think even if it had have been another track, Charlie, the mistake in the first place will still have cost him pole position. 27 corners, it seemed to be 27 one corner too many, didn't it, for Max Verstappen in that instance. But slightly shorter track this weekend and slightly less corners as well. It's an anti-clockwise circuit, just like Jeddah was. And a lot of people ask, like, what is the difference between an anti-clockwise and a clockwise circuit? Well, the difference is your front wing has to be adjusted differently because obviously on a clockwise circuit you have more right-hand corners, and on an anti-clockwise circuit you have more left-hand corners.
And also I think the positioning of the pit buildings as well are a bit different. They're usually the dirty side of the grid at some tracks, like particularly the clockwise circuits, is on the right, and the dirty side is on the left for anti-clockwise.
Yeah, I mean the pole position's always on the racing line, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that's always on the grippier side of the track. But yes, you're right. Obviously, in other circuits, the pole position will start on the left-hand side of the grid, but on Abu Dhabi, it's obviously the right-hand side of the grid because that's the racing line going into the first corner.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, I know Senna tried moving his grid position once in Japan, but obviously got overturned because of, well, the FIA, and obviously that was the Senna and Prost rivalry. So will that be again this weekend? Verstappen, Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton? We just don't know.
Who knows? If Mercedes want to stop Verstappen being a torpedo, do they leave Bottas alongside Hamilton? That would give them that little bit extra security if they could get Bottas on the front row as well.
I think for this weekend, Jack, obviously because Valtteri's last race with Mercedes as well, I think Bottas is going to want to go for a very strong drive this weekend. And don't remember as well, he done really well last time out. It's a shame for Esteban Ocon because he deserved the podium. But I think
it was a good recovery drive from Valtteri.
Yeah, but Valtteri Bottas has still got pedigree to drive for Mercedes. But I mean, yeah, he's going to want to give his last race to the team. He wants to put them on a positive note, I think.
And he's going to want to sign out with a podium and both drivers world championships in his hand, because Valtteri has said he will help Lewis this weekend, and if he needs to hold up Max, he will hold up Max.
I think those two get on really well. I would say that they've been one of the best pairings, I think, in the sport for a long time.
Well, they seem to work quite nicely, but we'll see how Team GB gets along next year. George Russell has already said today in the media that he admires Lewis Hamilton's work, and Lewis Hamilton has also said he admires how George Russell is coming up in the sport. George said he backs Lewis to get the title. Going into Mercedes next year, it could be George Russell in this position next year, couldn't it?
It could be. We don't know. We just don't know yet. But all I can say is just watch this space for all the news.
Yeah, and one piece of advice, Charlie, to our viewers this weekend?
Enjoy the racing. There will certainly be plenty of great action on the line this weekend.
Yeah, and do not miss it. I think I'm going to stick some glue to my sofa and sit on it so I don't go anywhere for the entirety of the race. It's got every ingredient to be a finale that we will never, ever forget. To match an F1 season, Charlie, that we will never, ever forget either.
It will definitely not be an F1 season forget. We've got a busy weekend of action. We've got Formula One, and also do not forget as well, if you're watching telly this weekend, please, if you can, tune in to watch I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here for the final day on Sunday.
That's finals weekend as well. And on the track, it's not only finals weekend in F1, it's finals weekend in F2. That is yet to be decided as well. Well, have a good Friday, have a good Saturday, and we'll see you on Sunday. We have the race build-up from 12:35. And for the final time in 2021, the lights will go out at 1 o'clock for an epic Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Will it be Max Verstappen or will it be Lewis Hamilton? Find out on Sunday when Formula One returns.